Hi everyone, I am back and I am looking forward to sharing some content with you this year, 2025. I have to get used to saying that because it hasn't quite sunk in yet. Um, so my name's Charlie G, and I am so glad that you have found me on this YouTube channel or in my newsletter. If you aren't on my newsletter, please feel free to subscribe with the link in the description box. Ah, wow. Does it feel like we all just need to take a big, deep breath? At this point in time, it's only mid-January, and I'm already like, whoa. I feel like there's no, if you got a break, good for you. I didn't feel like I got a break. I had lots of my own kind of, I have two lives going. I have my corporate world still going and my shamanic world that is very full on at the moment with the energies and things happening in family and ceremonies, and the spirit world is really at me and saying, come on, you got to keep doing this. So this year will probably be the year that I do more of my shamanic practices, do more ceremonies, really step into the spirit world because it's there, it's all happening, just waiting for me to keep showing up, which is what I'm doing. So anyway, that was my little ramble. Well, I guess, look, it's just so lovely to connect with you again. I feel like it's been too long. I hope that everyone got some kind of a chance to have some rest in whatever space they're in, whether it's rest from family or rest with family. They can be two very different things. Um, and for me, it felt like the end of the year was really kind of, we need to take some comfort. Um, I know most, people will say, oh, the year was so big and blah, blah, blah. But I just think every year now there's so much going on. There's so many changes happening. Life can be exhausting for most people. Um, and I think that comes from a place of the fact that there's more demands placed on people, right? Like there's more demands for time and energy is in, if you're with someone, they demand energy from you. And you go to the store and there's so many people around and everything wants your money, everything wants you to buy. You have to be really cautious, because there's so much going on with AI and people become really suspicious about things, which I think we need to be really careful. But then what ends up happening is we just become more and more fearful of just being out in present day life. And I think that's really tiring because there's this kind of feel as though we can't keep on top of things. You get to a certain point in your life and then, well, what's next? What's next? What's next? There's always something going, well, there's this coming up, you got to get there, and there's this coming up and you got to be there. And the demands on how you look and are you aging well, oh my gosh, right? Amazing, unbelievable. It's just, yeah, that's how it really feels. And whether it's for me and not some of you are nodding and or some are like, hey, I'm having the greatest, I'm cool, well then that's awesome, keep doing that and be in gratitude for that. And I guess the furthest thing that I want to suggest is that I'm not grateful for my life and my world and where I'm at, because I am 110% grateful for my opportunities, for the way my life has evolved and panned out, and how really feel like I'm in the flow now. Um, I split from my husband last year. That was a big deal, from, coming out of the jungle to make that decision that this path that I'm on is a very solo path. It's very difficult and challenging to be in a relationship with someone, um, when you're very much in the relationship with the spirit world and the plant world. It's very demanding. And so we made that decision. And I'm sharing that with you in a vulnerable space because I want you to know that this is where life is evolving to, right? It's it feels very much like um, this was always my sole plan. I just had to get there. I just had to reach that point where I knew it was a decision that I had to make that was better for both of us. There wasn't anything wrong with our marriage. There wasn't anything, so which yeah, I don't want to say can sometimes make it harder because I've also been married before where it's challenging when you have challenges, and that's hard too. Like I think in any relationship that it's a challenge and it's a difficult thing to make those decisions to go your separate ways. Absolutely. I have lots of experience in that relationship part. But the reason why I'm sharing this with you, one, because I like to think that I'm authentic and I'm happy to be vulnerable with the people who choose to follow and listen to me, because what's coming in the future, I feel like is a need for authenticity and real people. Um, but I'm sharing it with you because I had to listen to my calling. And for me, the calling isn't about, oh, I need to go and help all these people, like some kind of savior complex or anything. Actually, it's quite the opposite. I've been fighting with that whole concept most of my life because I've had to wrestle with the idea of that imposter syndrome that so many of us struggle with, right? Who am I to get up there and be dancing in and out of the spirit world and you know and be that person up the front, right? Honestly, that's been a terrifying thought for me. But what I've learned is, and through the sacrifices that I've made, and I say the word sacrifices, I'm actually going to take that back a little bit now because um, I've evolved a little in the work that I've been doing to realize that they're just things that, if I say sacrifices, it kind of makes out that there's these big things that I need to, oh, I need to give that up and go over here now. And I have changed my life incredibly. Like I've given up so many things, health-wise, what I've consumed, friends, societies, communities, party activities, and now relationships. Um, but now, since then, and how I'm evolving spiritually, I can see that it's not like a sacrifice as such, as in, oh, I don't get to do that anymore. It's just things that kind of have dropped away that aren't part of where I'm going and aren't, what sort of words do I use here? It's kind of like when you're dancing in between the spirit world and the human world because your work is involving um, translating to both. I think that's where I see my work now. I'm kind of helping people to have that translation between what's happening in the spirit world behind their scenes and what they bring into ceremonies, because everyone brings in their spirit family and ancestors and things that they've picked up along the way, whether they know that or not. Um, and then I can help translate what's going on for them in a way that is digestible and understandable and kind of helps to say, well, this is where I would probably start working on first, baby steps, um, especially if there's ancestral work and all that kind of stuff. And so now I don't see them as sacrifices that I've made. Now I just see it as kind of things that I needed to shed that were unhelpful, that were holding me back, that now as I step into this space of, wherever it is that I'm going, I'm very kind of guided to go where I feel like I need to go to learn more and help more. That through that, it's just kind of shedding layers so that it helps keep my vibration up, my frequency up. It helps me to kind of function in a lighter way because there is a lot of energy that you need to kind of hold. You need to expand your energy for this work. You need to be able to hold a lot of energy, but then you also need to be able to shed energy that's not helpful really quite fast to help with your health. So it's like all this stuff going on that I've had to learn in the last, I'm going to say, um, I'm going to say the last 12 months. I mean, anyone who's listened to my stuff, I've been on the plant medicine journey for since 2018. But prior to that, I was already doing lots of kind of work on myself, and have always had that understanding of the spirit world, but never really in it. It was always something that was kind of, yeah, I know it's there, but it's like as if I had a choice. Um, which, I know everyone says you've always got a choice, but I think once you get to a certain place of understanding that the universe is so vast and so amazing, and that we're all connected and we're all breathing together. You know, we're all sharing a consciousness. This is where we come to that topic of spiritual awakening, which I really wanted to talk about today, because it's kind of, I want to say it's like a new trend to hear and talk about spiritual awakening, but it's definitely not new, right? I know some of you who follow me and watch my videos, you know, we've been doing this a while. This isn't a new thing. However, the depth and the frequencies and the vibrations and the level of spiritual awareness that we're now stepping into is definitely of a much broader level, a more expansive level, a bigger brain kapowie level. And yes, I just said kapowie. It's like, yeah, I'm having moments where I can look and talk to a tree and be like, this is real. We really all are connected. And how would how would the world treat each other and its things and its beings differently if we literally all looked at everything as connected, as one being? You know, the ants, the trees, the plants, the grass, other human beings. How would we treat each other differently? When we see people, we hear that people have lost all their homes, especially in the most recent fires in Los Angeles at the moment, people who have lost their everything. And our ability to kind of go, oh, maybe that's not in my country, oh, that's awful, how awful for them. But it's not really resonating with you because, well, the people in that country will help them. Hey, I'm in Australia. We know bushfires well. I just spent Christmas at my mum's, and it's a constant helicopters flying over with the buckets. And it's just pretty normal for us. There is nothing normal and complacent about trauma or losing everything. And that's certainly not what I'm saying. But even, bringing the horrific amount of wars that are happening into our front sight, right? I know some people talk about this as far as how dehumanizing it is when we just keep scrolling past, because we don't want to be triggered in that way, right? And this is no judgment on any of this. This is something I want to bring front of consciousness, because I'm really feeling it at the moment about this connected consciousness and how everyone is feeling exhausted, whether you acknowledge you're an energetic being or not, whether you're watching me for whatever reason and you're like, I don't know whether I'm into this stuff yet. If you're still calling it woo-woo, then maybe you got a long way to go, because that's keeping it, separate from you, as in, oh, that's that topic that I don't relate to. That's okay. It's all good. But how about you just let a few little things trickle into your mind and have a little think about some things, because we haven't done the world really well so far. Like, we're really messing things up. So maybe we need to start thinking differently, right? you know, maybe the things that you've always blocked out and thought that's too far reaching, that's too crazy, that spiritual stuff is too out there for me. Maybe it's okay if you just contemplate some of it and think this dehumanizing that we do through media and through social media and coming back to, these awful wars that are happening. I mean, none of them are natural, right? These are humans in high level political situations using human beings as chess pieces to play out their games and their ego and take over territories and make themselves feel bigger and better. And they have rights. And, what is wrong with us all living together on Mother Earth the way it's meant to be, right? Now, that may seem like, wow, that's such an impossible task. That's so big. But so, every change is a big, impossible task to anyone who, has just found out they have some chronic disease and they might need to lose 100 kilos or 200 pounds or whatever it is. That feels like a huge change. Or someone suffering in some way, they have to give up an addiction if they want to live. That's a huge change. You don't start by looking at the big, big picture and going, that's impossible hill to climb. You start with well, where can we start changing the way we think about things? If all of us started to shift our consciousness and our awareness and think, if that's right there in my backyard, if that's not just a person on the other side of the scrolling, of the other side of the world, if it's right here in my backyard, how would I think differently about that situation? How would I help? What if it was me? How would I feel? And it's not about taking on that feeling. It's about looking at that in a different version of responsibility. That gets uncomfortable, right? This whole idea of, you know, spiritual awakening, if we're all one, you know, the uncomfortableness with that. There's a video of an amazing, beautiful soul who I've introduced to in my newsletter already as Heather Love. She's gorgeous, and I have a wonderful conversation with her coming up. After it's been shared with you, I will actually add it to the link in the description underneath here. So if you're a YouTube subscriber and you're watching this after or whatever, it should be there. But it's also a good reason to sign up to my newsletter because I do share regularly wonderful, wonderful souls who have fantastic insight on all of these things. Spiritual awareness. What is it? Spiritual awareness. Spiritual awakening was what I meant to say. Spiritual awakening, I guess it's kind of the same thing. Um, what is that? It's literally having some kind of shift. It doesn't have to be with psychedelics. I know psychedelics are the thing, and that's great, and I'm really really excited about that. Or although there's always the shadow side of that with everything. But for many people, it means that they are having these experiences and realizing that they're not just a human, right? They're not just this human body getting around, going to work every day, dying, and then that's it. Thankfully, that's the awakening process, realizing that you are this amazing spiritual soul with the ability to connect to the divine consciousness, divine wisdom, your higher self, all the things. You can call it God, you can call it goddess, you can call it whatever you like. When we get that, and when we understand and we start to open our brains, which don't want to, because that's scary, right? Our brains like control. Our brains like to be able to fit everything into a little box and compartmentalize it so that we feel safe. Well, how's that working out for us? How safe are we feeling? Okay. So understanding that there is a divine consciousness, understanding that there is a flow to life, understanding that your soul has a purpose. And if you get out of the way, things will just happen for you. If you start, thinking and planning about your joys and what you want to do and how you want to fulfill your life, it will start to happen if you get out of the way and stop thinking about all the things that'll go wrong. This is how my life evolved. The spiritual awakening part is also, it's having those moments where you go, oh wow, so this is possibly true. We really are connected. We're all here as a species. We're all, connected to Mother Earth, and everything has a consciousness. And then there is the spirit world, right? Behind all of this, that's here with us all the time. And we can connect to all different beings. And as you've heard in some of my videos before, being careful of what you connect with, right? There's lots of shadow beings as well, but that's a whole nother topic. So what then happens? So actually what I want to do is I want to actually just let you know while I'm talking to you about this, that for me to have gotten here, to actually be sitting here talking to you about this topic, and be so okay with the fact that I've completely come out of my spiritual closet that I lived in, I had to lose everything. Now, I probably lost everything in the white privilege way of losing everything. I totally get that. I totally own my white privilege. And I certainly didn't have, bombs going off and running for my safety, and or flames engulfing me. That wasn't my version of losing everything. I'm not comparing myself or my trauma to that at all. This isn't that conversation. But the irony is that the universe also sometimes doesn't get attached to the how and why. You know, there's natural forces that take everything from people, and then there's the human forces that take everything from people. You'll notice they're quite different. So, but here's the thing. See, prior to me losing everything, I already knew I had an idea that there was this world, because I had experienced some weird things, but I wasn't taking it on board as a life thing, right? I was just like, oh, okay. So I had to lose everything. I had to lose a business that I had worked very, very hard for, like 5 years into a business that I had all my blood, sweat, and tears. Anyone who has owned their own business knows that you put your entire life into it, and I did. Unfortunately, I had made some very poor financial choices and got into a lot of debt. I had to get out of that. I lost my marriage, who was also my best friend. I lost which really was the beginning. I mean, I have had my heart broken a few times, but it was a very challenging way of losing a marriage. And I lost that friendship. I lost a partnership. I lost a lot of friends. My entire community that was revolving around my business, that all went. And what was interesting, and I lost my house, I lost my job, my income, everything. So and what I was about to say before, sorry, I get sidetracking myself. What was interesting and very challenging to lose was my identity with all of that. Now, that's something I realized more on self-reflection at the time, in the middle of losing everything and not knowing who you are, how you're going to make money, how you're going to pay your debt off, where you're going to live. I wasn't thinking in that reflective practice. I was just like crying all the time, drinking all the time, wondering what I was going to do. I mean, and this was in my mid 40s, 45-ish or something. I'm terrible with timelines, I always say. I ended up having to go and live with my mum again, which, I think, it's not about that. Bless my mum for letting me do that. It's more the fact that when you're an adult, the idea of needing to go and live back with your parents is not great for the confidence or the well-being of your mind or your mental health. And it wasn't. I'm not the type of person that wanted to be helped in any way, shape, or form. So it was incredibly humbling, which I needed to learn, because the path I'm on now, I have to stay humble. I have to be humble. I have to continuously make sure I'm in humble mode, which the universe loves checking me on, which is great. I had to accept financial help, which was excruciating. And like I said, I was left with a huge amount of debt, over 100,000 in debt, with no way of paying that back. And then it was either pay it back or go bankrupt, which is definitely not a path I wanted to do. My pride definitely didn't want to do that. And in Australia, it's not good on the record. So there was literally, it was pretty bottomed out. And then, as many of you have heard parts of my story, I did have a friend who was kind of a life raft for me, that had said, don't worry about all that, come over and stay with me. And then he died the night before I was getting on the plane. And that was kind of the whole breakdown for me. That was the end of the rope, as they say. It was my kind of step out of, if I leave all this behind that just broke me, I'm going to go here. And then the universe said, no, you're not. You don't get to escape this. You do not get to escape this feeling of being at the bottom of everything. And I can see that now. I can see that, of course, I was trying to escape and just start over and pretend none of that happened. And I would have just gone down some other path unrecognizably. My health was shocking. So what did that mean to me now? And how is it that I can look back at that time and know that it was actually the best starting point I could have asked for? I mean, if you'd have told me that there and then, I probably would have slapped you in the face. Well, maybe metaphorically, but nobody wants to hear that when they've just lost everything. They need time, and losing everything is different for everyone, right? Losing everything can be losing one person in your life. Losing everything can be losing the job that you've just put everything into. Losing everything can be the car that means the world to you, because everyone's everything is so different. It's, what does that mean to you? And I had tied my world up and my identity up with so many external things. Everything was external. Who I was in my business, how I represented myself to my clients was very important. What I drove, I would have a BMW, even though I couldn't afford it. Had a house, had the mortgage, because everyone said you've got to get a mortgage. Um, you know, would travel every year, couldn't afford it. Would always, oh, I got to, look, present well. We owned a gym, so I was fit, but I wasn't fit, or I was fit and I wasn't healthy, right? Because the way I was getting fit, or the mindset that I was being fit for, was not actually for my own physical health. It was just because I needed to look good for everybody else. Not one part of the world that I was living in, or the life that I was showing to everyone, was anything to do with what I really wanted. And I didn't know that. That's the weird part. That's the irony. Because I'm like, how did I not know that? I was sad. There was many moments of reflection where I felt very alone amongst a lot of people. And I'm sure many people who, can relate to that, feeling alone amongst a crowd, or in your community, or in your family, or in your relationship, is a horrible feeling. And but I didn't know how to get out of it. And I didn't know I needed to get out of it, right? That's the thing. You don't know that this entire front of life. Anyone who would have looked at me would have thought, oh my gosh, she's got the great relationship. Everyone thought we were the perfect couple. Everyone thought everything was amazing. The whole community, everything. It all looked picture perfect. And yet there was no substance. There was no depth. My soul wasn't in it. Now, that doesn't mean I'm saying that, and, I absolutely loved what I did. My community was amazing, beautiful people. I was helping people, and I love helping people. I learned so much about business. I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about other people. Like every client is always a lesson for me, as far as I'm concerned, and that continues. But, you know, there was still this, drinking or escaping on the weekend or just being exhausted and like, what am I doing this for? And who am I? And is this what I'm doing the rest of my life? All this stuff. If I hadn't have lost everything, I mean, I don't know where I'd be. The plant spirits had already showed me that I would have been dead before I was 50 with the way I was going with my health. They actually showed me in a ceremony I would have had a heart attack. So, yay, I'm turning 56 this year. So 6 bonus years for me. Um, and more. I'm not planning on dying this year. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, again, the way that I lost everything was, I acknowledge it was a very white privilege way of losing things. But for me, it didn't make it any less, traumatic because I had to start from scratch. Now, by the time I was 45, I was pretty talented as far as what I could do resource wise, but had no confidence to go back into another job. I actually moved away. I lived with a beautiful family and helped them. They were very, very kind and let me take care of cooking for their family. And I was also, I was in a cafe, but I was also on unemployment. Like I was also getting coupons for shoes at 45. So all the things that made me stay very humble and all the things that actually made me really want to connect with people at that level who are starting over or in that space where they're just making ends meet, right? I had that massive debt to pay. I had negotiated it down to 80,000 and here I was on unemployment. It was like, I'm going to be paying this on the rest of my life. But it didn't pan out that way because I started to work on accepting the fact that I started to have a bed, a roof over my head. I wasn't out on the street. There's people who are out on the street and I wasn't there. So I had to be grateful for that, right? Um, and that's when the pet sitting started. That's when the house sitting started as a way of me being able to move around and help others be appreciative of the space they were giving me. I didn't have to worry about setting up accounts for electricity and internet and all those kinds of things. It kind of just helped lift me a little bit and be more functional. Now, I know I've got other videos about my healing story, and I was obviously things got really dark, especially when I, as I said, I lost my friend who died, and that really, really made me fall apart. It was just to make sure that I was completely smashed, and that absolutely started me on the plant medicine path, and that's a whole lot of big story. But I want to come back to this feels like a year ahead. I mean, there's so many energies and vibrations going on, and I know I've shared lots of videos with those of you who are subscribed or on my newsletter about people who are really able to interpret some of the planetary energies coming up. But what it feels like is the most important thing is for people to understand that their identity and who they are, who you are, is not your worth, and your value is not the things you own. It's not the house you keep. You are not your house. If that house is taken away from you in the blink of an eye, your value is still with you, and it won't feel like that when you lose it. That's the shake up, right? Because as a human race, as our consciousness, if all of our upbringing, everything we've learnt, the way we're raised has taught us that you are only worth your academic abilities, you are only worth your paycheck every week, you are only worth whether you can have kids or not, you are only worth how good a parent you are only worth how big your house is, or how big your wealth is, or what fancy car you drive. No wonder we're all going to have it shaken up and taken away from us if we don't want to let go and realize that we are the most valuable beings possible. Our value is within ourselves. Our value is seeing our true purpose of how humans are as valuable as trees and animals, and our value is about our livingness, our beingness, our connectedness. So just let that sink in. Let that, and I'm not suggesting that everyone has to be completely wiped out, but it takes me back to the spot that I was in when I was working so hard to have it all together and to have all my ducks lining up, to realize that it didn't matter. None of it mattered. None of it actually made me feel fulfilled and amazing. I mean, some people might say, well, I love living in my big fancy house and it does make me feel happy. Okay. Does it though? Really? I mean, I'm not saying don't have nice things in a nice home and all that kind of stuff. I can be very, you know, at heart, I'm a Taurian, and Taurians love nice things and homes and fancy stuff. But the thing is, I don't let it define my identity. You know, my life now, I don't have any belongings. I have a couple of storage spaces where I have my shaman toolkit and my medicine stuff and a few little trinkety things. My clothing, I'm very minimalistic. I have certain amount of clothing. If I buy something new, I give something away. Books are the same thing. If I read a good book, I have to finish reading it and then give it away. I give it, I just keep, and I don't do that for any kind of accolade. Absolutely not. I'm sharing this with you because I have found it to be something that it's like a reciprocity energy, because everyone's using things differently. Yes, I'm in other people's homes, but I'm taking care of something for them, right? Because it is valuable to them. And so I'm taking care of their plants, I'm taking care of their animals, and it's beautiful. I'm someone who has such appreciation and gratitude for somebody else's home that it also means that I'm not making a footprint of my own somewhere else. Not suggesting everyone has to go out and pet sit, because if everyone did that, there wouldn't be any homes to pet sit in, right? So that wouldn't work. These are it's just to get you thinking a little differently, sparking some ideas, and also thinking about what do you strongly identify with that you might be a bit skewed. I mean, what is your value? If that was taken away from you, if what you most strongly identify with was taken away from you, how would you find your way back? That's probably my biggest question for you. How would you find your way back to you? Who are you without that identity, without that title, without that value in your thing and your stuff or the car that you drive around in? How would you be okay with being identifiable in the world? Not sure if that's the right word to use there, but hmm. So needless to say, I now can look back. I mean, that was that was 2004. So it's 10 years ago now that whole crumble happened. And I am so grateful. There has definitely been a lot of grief, a lot of grief. So I'm not suggesting I just dusted myself off. As I said, it was traumatic. It was, lots of dark times. And I had to process a lot of that grief because you're grieving from the person that you were, right? You're grieving at that loss of how you were identified. And I wanted it back. I hadn't created my new identity yet. I was like, well, who am I now? But that's the path. That's the spiritual awakening path. Who are you really? Who is your spirit? Who does it want you to be? Who does your soul want you to be? So that you can be this beautiful, big, bright light, helping others to find themselves, right? I love this message for you. I hope it's resonating with you in some way, that you feel that it's helping you ask the questions for yourself, your own self-reflection of what is it, if the universe was to pluck something away from you, as scary as a thought that might be, how can you how can you find yourself back from that? So that maybe that doesn't have to happen, right? And that's not meant to be a fear mongering kind of thought. I don't know. I don't want you to think, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? That's not we want to stay out of fear as much as possible, right? That's not helpful. That's not helpful. All right. I feel like I've said what I really needed to say, planned to say. I'm not sure. Let me know what you think. I love hearing your comments, your thoughts. And if spiritual awakening is a thing that you're going through, it is challenging, it is tough. It's not enlightenment. It's not like someone just switches the light on and you go, oh my gosh, I want to go and sit on a mountain and meditate, and this is all amazing. Mm, it's not like that. Well, that'd be too easy, right? Um, it's challenging. It's challenging. There's lots of changes. Things aren't the same. People to you aren't the same. Society isn't the same. The Matrix, the whole blue pill, red pill thing. You can't go back. Well, some people do. Some people switch it back off if you're not. But, why would you want to do that? You don't want to do that. It's been lovely chatting with you. All right. So much love to you all. Mwah. Bye for now. And please subscribe, like, share, do all those things, share with people who you think might help. And I really just want to send so much love out to the communities who are in that space that they need to find their new beginnings. Yeah. So much love to you all. Okay. Take care. Bye for now.